All right, welcome back to the hottest sports podcast in the United States as of right now, maybe even in the world, who knows. I am currently joined today by my co-host partner in crime, the Trent Bally. Trent, you're back in Michigan for the weekend. How are you doing? Now that football's over, where's our head at right now? What are we thinking?
I'm one of those people, I'm probably in the minority, but I kind of take a deep breath and exhale and have a feel good sort of honeymoon phase once football ends. It's not that I'm glad football's over, but it's a chance to kind of turn the page a little bit because I love college hoops. Ethan, I know you love the NBA.
Right.
Like there are other things. It just is a reminder that there's other sports in America other than football, which we sometimes forget about because football's that big of a deal. But I'm doing well, man. It's a great sports weekend. We're recording here on a Saturday. There's a huge game in the Big East coming up at 3:00 between Marquette and UConn. That's going to be a fun one. And Michigan State tonight, of course. There's a lot to look forward to, but how are you holding up?
I'm doing good, man. As you mentioned, the Big East matchup later today. I'm watching Creighton and Butler, and more to go along with that. Creighton is an Omaha team, but I hear you, man. I feel like when football ends, it's like it's a peaceful ending, where it's like I could almost do like a couple weeks off. I don't want like a massive amount of time off, but like
Right.
it's almost like a spring break. Like give me a
Sure.
spring break, week to 2 weeks, but like then after that, I'm like, all right, let's start football again. But no, as of right now, I'm living peacefully in this mindset that football's over and we got other things to look at: NBA, college hoops. I'm like weirdly excited for baseball to start.
Me too.
I've never been that excited for baseball to start, but especially the Detroit Tigers coming up, man. I got a lot to look forward to with this young team. But we can talk about that, more when we get there. Trent, as you can tell, I'm in a new setting right now. For those of you watching on the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. But I'm in a different setting. I figured I'd try it from my office one day because I got this new mic. My audio should sound a little clearer, crispier, whatever you want to call it. Repping a Cincinnati Bearcat sweatshirt. Shout out my wonderful girlfriend Katie. Not a Cincinnati fan at all, but it's a comfy sweatshirt. What can I say? With that being said, Trent, a thought I had last night. Give me right now your top two sports movies. Give me your in the batting circle and on deck sports movies. If you just had to rip two right now.
Dude, so hard to think about on the spot, but I love The Sandlot. I've always been partial to The Sandlot. That has to be one of my top two. And then the other spot, man. I mean, oh, I love Hoosiers. I love Rocky. I love Space Jam. Like there's a bunch of weird ways you can go about it. But I think I'd have to go with Rocky 4. Kind of off the board.
Rocky 4.
Drago.
Sandlot and Rocky 4 from the kid.
Yes.
I love
Hoosiers close third. I love Hoosiers. Love it.
Yeah, so I kind of went basketball route. Have you ever seen the movie Glory Road?
No, I'll have to. I'm writing it down right now.
Glory Road is one of my favorite basketball movies of all time. I think so. One of my biggest qualms with sports movies is I hate when I'm watching a sports movie and the people that are like portraying the athletes aren't athletic. Like I hate that.
Oh yeah.
Glory Road does a fantastic job of having people in that are good at basketball play in the movie. And then coming into my on deck circle, I got Moneyball, just a classic. Brad Pitt, Jonah Hill, Chris Pratt with a weird appearance in that movie. But fantastic film Moneyball is. But yeah, just figured we'd rip a couple off there. Trent, I have a story.
Okay. I've been looking forward to this because full transparency, Ethan told me, he's like, I got a story to tell you. Or I think the exact text was, I got a story in all caps. And I was like, what's up? What's the story? And you're like, I want to tell you on the show. So have at it.
So yeah, I was originally going to tell you over the phone, but I figured my girlfriend convinced me that it might be better to tell you on the show, which I kind of agree with. So as I sit with this story, I don't know if I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's that big of a deal. It was a big deal for us, the Double Take podcast. We're a small market show, not a lot of grand things happening here. But listen, we're trying to make some noise, we're making some noise. We're building our market. We're furthering our brand. and we're the hottest podcast in the United States. So what can we say? With that being said, Thursday night, February 15th, circa, I had the opportunity to go and be a part of the watch party, as you might call it, for a popular podcast in the Omaha area called Let It Fly, the Let It Fly podcast. And it's a popular sports podcast, mainly focusing on Omaha sports. They often have Creighton basketball players, Nebraska football players. Anybody that's popular in the Nebraska Omaha area in sports is on that show. And we got connected, and they reached out and were like, yeah, hey, we'd love to have you come out and see what we do here, maybe swap a couple stories. So I was like, you know what? Like, this is a really cool opportunity. Me and Trent were texting about it. We got excited. This is a chance to connect, maybe do a little collaboration in the future. Shout out, Let It Fly. I'm going to shout out quite a few people and things in this podcast. So I get there, right? Thursday night, and I'm like looking for this guy. His name's Phil. Shout out Phil. He was sweet. I looked for this guy, Phil. He wasn't there. They brought me up into the studio, sat me down. They sat me down next to this girl named Meg. Shout out Meg. Meg runs the social media for all of Let It Fly. And so I was just kind of like, I didn't know anybody. Like, I wasn't introduced. I kind of just sat there, and then they just started rolling. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, man, like, this is really cool. It's in a nice little studio. There's a host with like these TVs around. It was a really cool scene. And as I'm sitting there for the first segment, he's like, yeah, we're going to join us in 15 minutes, and we're going to have Stephen Ashworth on for our next guest. And I was sitting there thinking, and I was like, Stephen Ashworth, like, who? That name sounds familiar. And if you are listening to this podcast I think it was a week ago, Trent, you had told me to watch the Creighton Providence highlights of that game last week. And I was like, you know what? I haven't really been paying attention to Creighton. Like, I'll give it a watch. This guy, Stephen Ashworth, is an absolute bucket. And I was watching this clip that you had sent me from last week, and I was like, he made like 6 threes in the second half. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this guy's insane. Now, fast forward to the Thursday night when they said that he was coming on the podcast, I was like, no way. Sure enough, got to meet Stephen Ashworth, starting point guard for the Creighton Blue Jays.
Let's go.
Super stand-up guy, super nice dude. Got to listen to that interview with him and the guy from Let It Fly for a little bit. Super nice guy. Shout out Stephen Ashworth. With that being said, I did take the over on Stephen Ashworth made threes today. I did. He's officially a friend of the pod.
Love it.
But anyways, that interview ends. That was like the first kind of cool experience. Now, the part I really wanted to tell you, Trent, came after I had sat and watched the show. I wanted a little time to, chat it up with Phil and kind of get the specs on his podcast. He wanted to hear some things about what we were doing. We were just kind of swapping stories and ideas, etc. Remember, we're up and coming podcast, the Double Tech here. We're the fastest growing podcast in the United States. So buy right now, because the stock is going exponentially high. So I'm sitting there with Meg, the social media girl. Meg is fantastic. She had a buffalo chicken pizza, offered me a couple slices. Who am I to turn it down? But we get to chatting, me and Meg. And she was telling me, like, she's a senior at Creighton. She's about to graduate. She's got all these grand ideas about what she wants to do with her future. She wants to go into marketing. She's doing all these things. And she was like, and honestly, at some point, I want to live with my boyfriend who, like, it doesn't live in Nebraska right now. And I was like, oh, dope. Like, I'm just kind of like chatting it up. Like, oh, dope. Like, what does your boyfriend do? Like, that's really cool. And she was like, oh, he plays basketball. And I was like, oh, word? Wait, what? Like, hold on. Like, what do you mean he plays basketball? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, where? Like, at first, I didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, we're like old enough to where we're past college. Yeah. So I was like, what do you mean he plays basketball for a living? And she's like, oh, he plays in LA. And I was like, LA. And she was like, yeah, he's on the Clippers. And I was like, hold on, what? And hey, listen. So she had mentioned that her boyfriend was on, like, this is before I knew he played basketball. She had mentioned that her boyfriend was on a 1-year contract. And then she talked about the Clippers. So then I was like, okay, now I got to know who it is. And Trent, I'm about to pull a name out that's going to blow your mind.
Oh, my. Okay. The suspense is killing me.
You know who her boyfriend is?
No, tell me.
Joey Hauser. from Michigan State. Go green, go white.
Dog. Joey Hauser. Look, full transparency, I had the pleasure of covering Tom Izzo's basketball teams for 4 years in college as a member of the quote-unquote student media. Joey Hauser, stand-up guy, great dude. Gotta love him. Great interview, straight shooter, super nice, makes time for everybody. That's crazy.
Yeah, just insane. So I'm sitting there. Again, Megan's super nice, but she said Joey Hauser, and immediately I thought of you, Trent, because I'm like, this is a Michigan State. Like, he was a beast.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to blow Trent's mind. So, obviously, I had to, plug, like, hey, if Joey ever wants to be on the Double Tech, yeah, we'd love to have him as our inaugural guest. With that being said, Trent, let me get a 30 to 45-second elevator pitch on why Joey Hauser should be the first guest to appear on the Double Tech podcast. Go.
So this is great timing because yesterday I actually was talking to my brother Brock about the NIL and the transfer portal and all that stuff. And we used Joey Hauser as a perfect example of why things were perfectly fine the way they were. Joey Hauser played 2 seasons at Marquette, transferred to Michigan State, and had to sit out for a full year to redshirt before he was able to then play for Michigan State. And now it just seems like guys, it's free agency, it's open season, they can go wherever they want. So I would love to talk to Joey Hauser about that process, why he transferred, what he loved about Marquette, what he maybe didn't like about Marquette, what it was like playing with his brother at Marquette and then leaving his brother Sam, who then went to Virginia. So they both transferred, went their separate ways, and just what that whole process is like, because I want to pick his brain on, like, dude, if you were at the height, if you were at the peak of this NIL stuff, would you have still picked Michigan State? Would you have maybe stuck it out at Marquette? Like, what's the deal? I would love to have that sort of conversation because he is the perfect example. One of the last great examples before NIL really took over of a premier transfer going from one premier program to another and having success in both places.
Well, there you have it, Joe. You have a golden opportunity in front of you to be a part of something great here at the Double Tech podcast. And we'd love to ask you some questions. So closing that whole spiel up, shout out Phil, shout out Meg, shout out Let It Fly podcast. Shout out Stephen Ashworth and the Creighton Blue Jays, and shout out Joey Hauser, Michigan State, and Marquette, and University of Wisconsin Stevens Point legend.
That's right.
Let's move on, though. Past that, Trent, obviously we got to acknowledge the elephant in the room. The Super Bowl happened last Sunday.
Yep.
Just as we both predicted, some might call it a no-brainer. The Chiefs not only covered, but they won. You heard it here on the Double Tech podcast. Me and Trent both called it. Trent, was this game always the Chiefs? Was it always the Chiefs? Or was there a point in the game where the 49ers had the ball, they just had to run with it?
A lot of ways to attack this, but obviously things didn't go exactly how I thought they would. I remember last week on the show, I said it'd be a blowout. I think I said 34-13 or something like that. The Niners were impressive. And to me, it's ironic that they fired Steve Wilkes, their defensive coordinator, 4 days after the Super Bowl, because for 57, 58 full minutes, they were pretty much holding Patrick Mahomes to nothing. And then all of a sudden you get a full fifth quarter in there, and the better team's going to end up winning the game. The stronger quarterback is going to end up winning the game, and that's what Mahomes did. So I would say, it was always the Chiefs. To me, it was, at least. I was watching that game. There was never really a huge doubt in my mind that they'd end up pulling that thing out, whether it was ugly or it was going to be a shootout or it goes to a couple overtimes, whatever. They were going to win that game, in my opinion. And it's always interesting to hear Andy Reid and Chris Jones say after the game, if they would have scored a touchdown, the Niners, on that first drive of OT, we were going for 2 if we scored again. So I think that kind of mentality, even though it's a little crazy and it gets certain coaches in trouble at times, the Chiefs can pull it off, man. I think it was always the Chiefs. What do you think?
It was always the Chiefs. I think if the 49ers wanted to win that game, like you said, I think the firing of Steve Wilkes was kind of absurd because it was offense that got the 49ers to where they were. Correct. In the playoffs. And the fact that they scored 19 in 4 quarters, that's a bad game for them. And I think Brock Purdy came out and took responsibility of the fact that they only scored 19 points, but they scored their only touchdown of the game on like a double pass trick play. Like that shouldn't happen, Right. They held, like you said, they held Patrick Mahomes to 19, even before that, 16 before everything. It was on the offense. it was always the offense for the 49ers. They were the reason why they couldn't push the ball down and end up scoring. Their defense was doing their job.
And what I thought was really interesting, real quick, Ethan, just to interject real quick, is we talked all season about how this is the weakest Kansas City offense in this Mahomes era, and they really got to lean on that defense. And lo and behold, in the biggest game, and really in the AFC Championship game too, against Lamar and the Ravens, they leaned on that defense. The defense won them the game. I think it's awesome.
Right. Like you said, completely won by the defense. Super awesome. Mahomes, obviously, now we can start talking about him in that GOAT conversation, which is wild. But I want to know, so you had mentioned Andy Reid and Chris Jones talking about that overtime thing. What's your reaction to the 49ers allegedly? I mean, it's not really alleged because everyone's come out and say it, but they were not prepared for overtime. I think that is completely a Kyle Shanahan fault. There is no reason why you're not coming into that game ready. I saw a clip yesterday of Patrick Mahomes hearing that they wanted to receive, and you could see visual surprise on his face. Like, he raised his eyebrows like, for real? And he was like, yeah, we'll kick that way, you know?
Yeah.
What is your reaction to that, though?
I am maybe in the minority here because I don't want to insult Kyle Shanahan's intelligence. I don't think he understood what was going on either. I really don't, because it's very, very simple, E. And for those of you listening who don't understand how the overtime rules work in the postseason, how it works is, if you get the ball and you go score, the other team gets the ball anyways. And if you don't score and then they get their possession and they score any score of any kind, a field goal even, it's game over. So you cannot be taking the ball first. You cannot do that. Yep. You have to give your defense the opportunity to go get a stop, and then you let the offense breathe a little bit. So my reaction, Ethan, maybe this is alluding to what I'll talk about with the doghouse stuff later when we get to that at the end of the show, but Kyle Shanahan, man, like, grasping at straws. You want to talk about a guy who was choked in some big games, and then he gets to the biggest game. His offense is not playing well. And then after the game, after regulation, doesn't really seem to know what's going on in overtime, or doesn't really have his guys understanding what's going on in overtime. And then the cherry on top is he's firing his defensive coordinator when the defense played fine in the Super Bowl. I could argue they played really well in the Super Bowl. So my reaction to the whole thing, man, I think it's shameful. I blame Kyle Shanahan 100%.
Yeah, I'm wholeheartedly in the same boat. I think when push comes to shove, the only object you can look at in that situation is the leader, and in that case, Kyle Shanahan is the one to blame. As the guy it's his job to prepare his team. Like, in the interviews with the Chiefs guys, they were saying they had a couple meetings during the week to discuss overtime strategy. Like, it was something that they were planning for. Preparation-wise, if your leader is not preparing you for battle and preparing you for what may come at the end of battle, you have no reason to win that game. And I think Kyle Shanahan is fully to blame, like you said. What I was curious about, though, can you imagine if the 49ers had scored a touchdown on that first drive? Just seeing them all freak out and run out into the field? How embarrassing. How embarrassing would that have been for them?
I didn't even think about that, but you're exactly right. If they thought the rules are what they allegedly what they thought they were, which is first score wins, and they go out there and they score a touchdown, and then they're celebrating, and their defensive players even are probably ripping their helmets off and running around. It's like, no, you guys got to get your butts on the field and get a stop now. Otherwise, this thing's going to go to double OT.
How embarrassing that would have been. That would have been like cringy. That would have been like cringe level embarrassment. So not much to say about the Super Bowl besides the fact that Mahomes time and time again gets it done when it matters the most. You just can't bet against this guy when his back is against the wall. And it's scary to think that we have now been a part of, Trent, in our lifetime. We've been a part of two very strong dynasties, Patriots growing up, and now we're dawning upon a new dynasty, the Kansas City Chiefs. And the scary thing about it is they're going to be even better next year. Can you imagine? They're about to, in my opinion, I think it's under their best volition to go out there and get a number one receiver.
Mike Evans
or T. Higgins. And if they do bring a guy like that in there, I mean, they're not even like the 49ers are still favored to win it all next year, which is completely bizarre to me. because
it's ridiculous. It's malpractice. At
yeah,
what point are we going to start realizing that the stars win? I understand it's a team game. Mahomes, like you said, Ethan, firmly in the GOAT conversation. The Chiefs dynasty is firmly here. It has arrived, and I'm with you. This was the worst Chiefs team that we've had since Mahomes walked into the league, and they just won the Super Bowl. They're going to re-up that offense. They're not going to have the same problems they had, and I know Travis Kelce's getting a little older. Chris Jones, you're going to have to pay him, but I am with you, man. They're going to be right back in the same saddle next year.
oh yeah, and shout out Spagnuolo, man. That guy was calling
Yes.
a heck of a defensive game that entire time, making Brock Purdy super uncomfortable, which is what we kind of predicted last week when we talked about the Super Bowl, was that they needed to make him uncomfortable. And sure enough, that 3rd and 4 at the very end of the fourth quarter, there was like 3 minutes left, and 3rd and 4, Spagnuolo calls a blindside blitz, basically. I think it was Snead that ended up blitzing Purdy. It was the biggest play of regulation, in my opinion, because had they gotten that first down, they just had to run out the clock and kick the field goal. But forced Purdy to throw it away or whatever. It stops the clock. They kicked the field goal, and it was a 3-point game, and there was still like a minute and a half left. You knew Patrick Mahomes was going to drive down the field. And it's scary as fans of the game to just know that that's going to happen. Like, if you're sitting there watching the people that don't watch football, they're like, oh, like he doesn't have much time left. And you're like, no, that's Patrick Mahomes. He could have 25 cents and a lighter, and he could survive in the wilderness for 6 months. You know what I'm talking about?
You know what I equate it to? It's probably how just before our time in the 98 NBA Finals when the Bulls had the ball with like 15 seconds, whatever it was, when Jordan hit the shot over Brian Russell. It probably felt like that. It's like, okay, if you're a Jazz fan, you're like, okay, we're up 1. We're in the finals. We should feel good. We're 1 stop away, but we don't feel good at all because I'm sure that's how Niners fans felt in that moment. They're like, look, we're right here. We played a heck of a game defensively, but it's that guy on the other side, man.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story. It really is.
And you can only do that when there are GOAT level players on the opposite side of the ball. So that leads me to my next question, Trent. Are there any other quarterbacks or just players, this can be in any sport, in your lifetime where you kind of have that same mindset where you're like, yeah, they're going to go get what they want. Like, no matter how much time is left, they're going to come down and they're going to, like, for example, like you got a 10-point lead with 2 minutes left and you're playing the 2018, 2016, whatever year you want to call it, Golden State Warriors. And you know that coming down there, 2 minutes left, you got Steph Curry on the other side.
Yep.
10-point lead isn't safe. So, like, are there any other players in your mind where you're like, I don't care how much time is left. If they got the ball with any amount of time left, this game is never over.
Dude, not to take the cop-out answer, but I think Tom Brady's really the only other one. And that's who Mahomes is now getting compared to. And I know he doesn't have the rings, and we talked about this last week. But you can't even say guys like LeBron. And I love LeBron to death, but like it's just some of it's situational. Some of it has to do with what your record is in those situations, your track record. LeBron always rises to the occasion, but he doesn't always get the win. You know, LeBron dropped 51 in an NBA Finals Game 1 loss because J.R. Smith forgot to score. Like, there's little things. With Mahomes, none of that seems to matter, man. It could be a holding penalty. It could be an offensive pass interference. Receivers could be dropping stuff during the season, and then when the lights go on for the Super Bowl, man, he's balling. So I think the only other guy I could really confidently say is Tom Brady. And there are players that show flashes of this. They get on a hot streak, like Yordan Alvarez for the Astros in the World Series a couple years ago when he was hitting walk-offs in like every other playoff game. You know, there's guys go on runs in March Madness, like Jimmer Fredette at BYU and stuff, where you just think this dude's having his way. But never like Mahomes, man. We now have a full body of work. He's been in 4 Super Bowls. He's won 3 of them. And it just seems like every time he gets the ball, he's going to make it happen.
Right. I almost, what comes to mind for me is almost like a Tiger Woods coming into the final round.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It doesn't matter what kind of leads you got. This guy's about to hit 3 straight birdies.
I want to throw this in there because I kind of forgot about individual sports, unfortunately. But I would throw Michael Phelps in there. That 2008 Beijing Olympics was insane.
Shout out Phelps.
Him beating Laszlo Tche by 1/1000th of a second for the gold, and I think it was the 200 fly. That was insane. And then ever since that moment, he was just a legend. Came back in London in 2012, killed it. Came back in Rio in 2016. They said he was washed. coming off some drug problems, killed it again. So I'd throw Phelps in there. Tennis, like there's a few tennis players, but even tennis, man, I mean, it's like Rafa Nadal kind of needs to be on clay to have that feeling. Djokovic needs to be, I mean, he's done it everywhere, but some more than others. Like Pete Sampras never won on clay, I think. There's all these weird things, and with Patrick Mahomes, it doesn't seem like there's any of those qualifiers.
Right. Speaking on tennis for a second, I'll tell you who's an up-and-coming star is Carlos Alcaraz from Spain.
He is.
He is him. He is officially him. I remember watching, I think it was the U.S. Open last year, where he beat Francis Tiafoe or something in the semifinal. That guy's just insane, man. This Alcaraz guy, and he's got so many years left.
How old is he? Like 20?
Yeah, I thought he was 19 when he first did it, but 20 in that area. He's got a good 15 years left of tennis.
Yeah,
given that he takes care of his body. Hitting a pivot, anyways. We got a little bit away from football. We're gonna bring it back here, Trent. I want to talk about a couple topics here. What were your thoughts on the commercials? You a big commercial guy, or are you kind of like, yeah?
No, I love commercials. Look, I'm disappointed with how far we've gotten. We've kind of lost the plot on Super Bowl commercials a little bit in corporate America.
Yep.
But there are still some hidden gems. You're always going to get some good stuff. I loved the Christopher Walken one. Yeah. I loved the Duncan one was the one everyone was talking about. It was pretty good. I thought I got a little overblown, but anytime you get stars like that in one room and J-Lo and Tom Brady and all that good stuff, it's good. I thought the commercials were fine. Nothing spectacular compared to years past, but I don't know. Did you have a favorite in mind?
I was going to kind of go along with your first point there. I think the commercial game has definitely lost its fastball in terms of product. But honestly, what shocked me, so I'm watching the game with my girlfriend, and I don't know if I should be priding myself on this. I don't know if I'm proud of it, but like I know a lot of names, like a lot of celebrities. It's like that useful knowledge that you store right in your head. And she doesn't. So we'll play this game sometimes where I'm like, okay, like who's that? Like who's that? Who's that? And she's got to try and guess. And I'm like naming stuff that they've been in. I don't know. It's a fun game. And we're watching the commercials, and I'm like, okay, so like every time we see somebody, it's going to be like our quiz throughout the Super Bowl. Every single commercial has a star in it. Do you notice that? Where it's like you almost can't have a commercial anymore unless you have an A to B list celebrity in there, which is just bizarre to me. I'm sitting here on the couch. Every other commercial, I'm like, oh, there's another random person. What? Dan Marino is in like 3 commercials. This guy, Dan Marino, is a true journeyman of the commercial game. But I thought the commercials were okay. I didn't have much qualms with it. I didn't think they were that good compared to years past. One of my favorites was the Paramount commercial with like
that was really good.
All of the Nickelodeon stars, and then Creed came out, and then he threw it. That was a classic.
Yeah, that was good.
Classic commercial.
He threw Arnold because his head's shaped like a football or whatever, and it was good. But I'll shout out our buddy Spencer for a second because I got a quick funny story about Super Bowl commercials. So senior year of college at Michigan State, we're living on Gunston Street, had the best year ever. But we're sitting there watching the Super Bowl, and before kickoff, I turned to him and I was like, hey, who is one celebrity who's a little bit off the board that you want to see in a commercial? Like, let's place our bets now. And I said Cher because I love Cher, and I just thought maybe she'd be in like something. And Spencer thinks about it for about 5 seconds, and he goes, Mike Francesa. Do you know who Mike Francesa is?
I don't know who Mike Francesa is.
He basically is the reason you and I are doing this. He started talk radio in New York in like the 90s, I think. Mike Francesa, Mike and the Mad Dog. They were like the big show that like they talked about the Yankees and stuff. Anyways,
is that Mike and Mike in the Morning?
No, that was a different one, but same type of show. It's like 2 co-hosts that just go at it and they talk about sports for like 3 hours. It was Mike Mad Dog Russo, who's now on First Take all the time with Stephen A, and then Mike Francesa. So yeah, that's all. That was just funny. It was like way off the board. I was thinking like, give me like a B-list or something. Spencer went Mike Francesa. It was hilarious.
Typical Spencer. Was Mike Francesa or Cher in any of the commercials?
No, we both struck out.
That's what I was curious about, because that would have been a golden moment had he been in one. Oh man,
would have been great.
But
if that would have happened, I would have been like, bro, who do you know in the industry? Like you had some inside track information.
That's got Vegas insiders for sure.
Yeah, right.
moving past the Super Bowl here, I honestly feel like now that football's over, it's almost like losing its luster, where it's like I didn't really want to get too much into the Super Bowl because it's like Mahomes won, let's just get past it. There's other things that are coming up. There's other things that we can talk about, things we can get into. One of those being NBA All-Star Weekend. Trent, are you watching All-Star Weekend?
To be completely honest, I haven't watched anything yet. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I'm at home with family and kind of spent last night.
Yep.
Again, we're recording on a Saturday, so Friday night I think was the Rising Stars Challenge, and was the celebrity game last night. Maybe I don't know.
Celebrity game is so dumb. It's ridiculous. Over the celebrity game.
They're doing this whole publicity stunt with Stephen A. Smith's ankle injury. It's horrendous. There was like a brief shining moment for like 2 years where the celebrity game was must watch. It was like Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
I think, wasn't Obama in it, or am I way off base?
I think you're off. I don't think.
Okay, sorry, never mind. Obama was not in it, but I think there was someone from Obama's cabinet that was in it, or something.
Maybe he was. Now that I think about it,
I don't think he was. I was off base. But anyways, my point is just it used to be good. Now it's like Machine Gun Kelly. Like, I don't need to be seeing that. So, anyways, get back to the root of the matter. No, I'm not really watching a whole lot of it. I'll probably watch the actual game itself, the All-Star game. And I'll watch the highlights from like the dunk contest and stuff. Just like anything else, I'll keep up with the headlines, but I'm not really, Saturday's for college hoops. I'm not going to be watching the Rising or the celebrity game or whatever it is today.
Yeah, I'll kind of give my take on that. I agree. Like I love the big moments. I love the 3-point contest. I love the actual All-Star game itself. I'm glad that they altered the scoring for that. I'm just so over the whole theatrics of celebrities coming together to celebrate the fact that they're celebrities. I'm so over the theatrics of the Oscars, the Grammys, the celebrity game, even NFL All-Star or the Pro Bowl things. I think it's so like cringe that all these famous people come together and they're just like, hey, yeah, we're famous. And then it's like, okay, what are we supposed to do? Just congratulate you for being famous? Like, good job.
They got to pump you. They got
blue collar workers. There's blue collar workers out here in this community that are working right now, and you're over here drinking sangrias with I don't know,
with someone you don't even and you don't even like Jim Nantz, but you're just acting like you like Jim Nantz because you're a celebrity.
Yeah, and like everybody is surrounding them with phones out, and like they're filming every single little thing, and it just seems like such a like you said, a publicity stunt. So no, the Celebrity All-Star Game is dumb. All like super dumb. People do watch it though. People do watch it and it gets ratings. But like you said, it used to be good with Kevin Hart in there. And like I just don't like that they're getting people as much as this might be off the hinges. I don't like that they're getting people that are good at basketball. I kind of want to watch that game and treat it as parody a little bit.
Yeah,
I want these people to kind of stink.
You know what? I think it was
like Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, who are like clearly on a different athletic level than everybody else.
Right. Like they probably could have played like D3 college basketball or D2 college basketball because they probably played in high school and were like 3 or 4 star recruits in basketball. They just chose football, like
right.
I'm with you. And I also think a couple years ago, they put a WNBA player in it. And I'm kind of like, that really belittles the WNBA. If you're going to just put them in the celebrity game because you need someone to fill time. B, that's also not fair. That's a professional basketball player that you're just throwing in the celebrity game. What are we doing?
What are we doing? What actually are we doing? And on that topic, did you see the Rising Stars Challenge? The G League team beat the not the Rising Stars team. The G League team. Well, who did they beat?
Dude, I have no idea. I don't even know.
So the NBA G League team essentially beat a team of NBA players. The NBA team had Victor Wembanyama on the team, and the G League team won. That is embarrassing. If you want my opinion, these G League guys are out here playing for contracts. They literally don't have a contract, and now they're beating actual NBA players. NBA All-Star Weekend. What are we doing?
Fix it. Here's the problem. E, and I don't know how to solve it. I'm that guy that's going to give you a problem with no solution. But The pendulum has swung so far in one direction where we just want to put anything and everything that might get eyeballs on the TV. Why? Let's go for a little more quality over quantity. And I think this is a case in point, perfect example of it, because Ethan, you're exactly right. If we got G Leaguers beating up on NBA players who are getting talked about every single day, and these guys can't even get their name on the back page of the paper in a small market, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's the bottom line with NBA All-Star Weekend. What are we doing?
I think we could tweak that idea, though. I think they should get these G Leaguers to play for a contract. I think there should be some sort of relegation that happens in that game. I think if the G Leaguers win, they take the place of all of the NBA players. That would be kind of exciting. Throw some stakes on it a little bit.
Winner stays in the league.
Winner gets to hold their 10-day contract.
That would be great.
Speaking of short-term contracts, though, Joey Hauser, we love you and we'd love to have you on the podcast. We hope you get another contract. Moving forward, past NBA All-Star Weekend, all the theatrics, whatever you want to call it, all the rigmarole that is out there right now, we got to start addressing college basketball. It is becoming, to that point of the year, March Madness right around the corner. We're starting to talk about the bubble. We're starting to talk about first four in, first four out. All these conversations are heating up. Trent, I'm being completely honest with you. I have not watched I might have watched 2 full single games of college basketball all year. I hear about the headlines, obviously, but I'm not in the trenches watching the games. I know that I should, but I've just been consumed by football and NBA lately. So, Trent, I want to do a little bit of a segment here. I would love for you to educate me and maybe some people, some listeners that we have who are in the same position as me, maybe need some picks, maybe needs some insight to the college basketball season before March Madness comes around. Is there any way you could help us with like some trends? I was thinking maybe 2 teams that are moving in the right direction, 2 teams that are moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is my wheelhouse. Like you said, I love college hoops. I'll try not to ramble too much here, but
hey, the floor is yours, brother.
The 2 teams that I think are moving in a positive direction, and this first one's going to sound ironic because 2 weeks ago I bashed this team and this program and its history, but that's the Purdue Boilermakers. This is the best team I think they've ever had, ever. They've really not wavered all season long. They've been at the top. I think they were AP number 1 going into the year. I think they've been 1 or 2, maybe down to 3, but they've been right up there all season long. They don't have that horrendous loss yet. And I say yet because I do think it's coming. But right now, if you look at the trend, they look very, very good, very well coached, very tough to beat. The only thing they could get in trouble, this is how they lost to a 16 seed last year, is they're not super athletic. They're very fundamental. They're very well coached, but situationally at times, sometimes it just takes, like, if you get in a dogfight a little bit, those athletes are the hungry dog runs faster, if you will, Ethan. And that's honestly the case with a lot of the Big Ten teams. When you stack them up with the Big 12 or the ACC or the SEC, it's just more athletic down there by nature. Big Ten, Midwest, we're recruiting regionally. So I'll give some credit to Purdue. This next team that's trending in the right direction, this is way off the board, but hear me out. The Florida Gators.
Oh,
this is a team that they're on the bubble right now. They're firmly on the bubble. They're no lock to even make the tournament. But if they do make the tournament, Ethan, they're probably going to be an 8 or 9 seed. And I would look out if you are a Purdue and you win that first game and you got to play the 8 or 9 and you draw Florida. They have athletes. That's the exact antithesis what I'm talking about with Purdue and the rest of the country. Florida, they end their season with an opportunity to impress. I think they play Vanderbilt twice, who stinks. One of those games I think is today. But they have a chance to really launch into the postseason and maybe make some noise in the SEC tournament. And that's just a team that when I'm filling out my bracket, I could see myself maybe picking Florida to beat someone in the second round. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, why didn't we pay any attention to these guys all season? Like, where do they come from? Because they haven't been in the AP poll all year. I'm just saying, keep an eye on the Gators. They're trending up after a little bit of a disappointing start. 2 teams moving in the wrong direction. These are probably 2 teams that are towards the top of the barrel in general. If you just take a snapshot of the season, you zoom out, they're going to be high seeds in the tournament. But there are 2 teams that I'm really concerned about. And that, for one, is Kansas, because I think they're coming off a little bit of a hangover from 2 years ago. And Hunter Dickinson's great. He's a great fit there. He actually works really well in the Big 12 and everything. Problem is, they don't surround him. I'm gonna get really X's and O's here. They don't surround him with the correct shooters. He needs shooters around him. He can shoot, but he can also bang down low. And I don't know if there's. I think you can count on one hand the amount of big men that can hang with Hunter Dickinson in the post. They got to get better on the perimeter. And granted, Kansas right now, I think they're top 10 in the country. I'm just saying the way the trends are going. They've been up to number 1 so far this year, but they've lost as of recently.
Are they ending their year with any good teams?
Let me check that real quick because that's a good question. Let's look at their.
Because I do remember watching Kansas play somebody recently, and this is what I'm talking about. I don't know much about college basketball, but I had the other team, and I was watching Kansas, and I was watching Hunter Dickinson. Shout out Michigan, go blue! And he again, just like I remember watching him, was like you said, banging down low, doing his thing. But I wasn't impressed with the shooting. I truly wasn't.
So just because I got the schedule pulled up, I'll double down on something real quick, and then we'll just kind of take a look at what they got coming up. But they beat Houston, who is currently the number 3 team in the country. They beat Houston. They whooped Houston. They looked really good. So that's the high. The Jekyll and Hyde of that is they lost to Kansas State, who's unranked. They lost to West Virginia, who's unranked. They lost to Iowa State, who's a good team. I think they're still in the top 10. But these are just, when you put them up against great teams, they don't always deliver. They did against Houston, but to that point, Ethan, they get another crack at Houston to end the season, and it's in Houston. That's on March 9th. So that could be a rock fight. They have to play Kansas State again, who they've already lost to. They have to play Baylor, who's a top 15 team in the country. So just keep an eye on Kansas as we go down the line. That's all I'm saying. Handful of games left. They're a candidate to, I don't want to say crash and burn because they're still going to be like a 3 seed at worst, but just keep an eye on them. And then another team. And this is a team that I don't even know if they're really trending down, but just a team that has disappointed all season long, the Miami Hurricanes. Went to the Final Four last year. Everyone was high on them, but I don't think people really understand. They're losing Isaiah Wong. They're losing some of their talent, some of their scoring production. And Jim Larinaga, I don't know if you've seen the clip, but it went a little bit viral. He called a timeout for his team to kind of like regroup, and then he just sat on the bench and just sat there like, I don't know what to do with these guys, basically. Wow. And it was a horrible look. This team, I think they were top 15 or something coming into the season. Not to bore everyone with the numbers, but that they're like out of the tournament if the season ended today. So they really got it. They got work cut out for them if they want to come back with any sort of expectations. Because coming off a Final Four run, this is just really, really disappointing. And I'll tell you what, being down in Florida, the local media is killing the Hurricanes their lack of effort. So there you go, 2 great teams. 2 teams, not so much, but that's fun, Ethan. We are firmly in the wheelhouse now of like, we got a month until March Madness. Things are heating up.
Right. And I'm super excited for the tournaments to start because that's kind of when I start watching college basketball a little bit. Sort of like the NBA a little bit where I'm like the regular season, I'm not that interested. I know that the college regular season is, a lot more interesting. But to me, it's just like I just want to start watching when the emotions get heightened. I want to hear Gus Johnson's voice on TV again. Yeah. I don't know if he's still announcing the March Madness, but I want to hear it, man. But good stuff. Honestly, sad for the University of Miami, man. I feel like they used to be such a storied athletics program in all sports. Now they haven't seen a good football team in a long time, and basketball is now on the down low again. It's just a rough sledding for the Miami Hurricanes. Let's move on here, though. Let's move on to the throne room and doghouse. Trent, by the way, thank you for your picks there. We're going to come back to that every week. Maybe, hopefully, we got some new movers coming in and out of your two good ones and 2 bad ones. Well, let's get into our throne room and doghouse. We love the throne room and doghouse. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, comment down below. But you'd see a couple big smiles on me and Trent's face because we just love this segment.
This is our pride and joy.
This is our pride and joy.
And credit where credit's due.
You got to scratch the surface of athletics and really dig down deep to get where we want to get with these picks, man. It's different. It's different with the throne room and doghouse. With that being said, Trent, you can go ahead and start us off with your throne room pick this week.
Maybe low-hanging fruit, but when records are broken, I mean, you got to talk about it. Caitlin Clark becomes the highest scoring player in women's hoops history. And did you see how she did it, Ethan? Did you see the basket that broke the record?
I did.
I mean, obviously there's no pressure because it's like 5 minutes into the game, but to just come down and chuck from half court, it went for no reason. I mean, you're playing a horrible Michigan team. You could easily just go in, drop an easy 25, break the record, celebrate later. No, she said, I'm going to do this the way I'm going to do what's gotten me here. She pulls up 3 seconds into the shot clock and cashes it, rips it. And I'm talking like they had that little counter up in the corner of how many points she needed. I think she needed 8 points going into the game, right, to break the record. And they've got the little counter. And it was only up there for about 10 minutes of real time because she got right down to business and she ended up dropping 40 plus in that game. So shout out to Caitlin Clark, the greatest women's basketball player we've seen at the college level ever. And I'm excited to see. I don't think she's going to go to the WNBA. I think she's going to come back for one more year because she has one more year of eligibility at Iowa. And she can make a lot more there with NIL than she can in the WNBA. So if she gets another full season, Ethan, of this type of scoring and this type of output, that record's never getting broken. I mean, it's like Wilt Chamberlain 100 in a game. It's never getting broken. So shout out Caitlin Clark.
Trent, I think this is one of those rare situations where I think we have the exact same throne room and doghouse.
Do you really?
I do. I thought I was going off the beaten path with Caitlin Clark as the throne room. She was my pick as well. And I was going to say the same. And I think we have the exact same doghouse as well. I'm gonna call an audible at the line. Obviously, wasn't ready for this, but we're gonna stay in women's college basketball, and I'm gonna flip the script to the other great women's college basketball player, Paige Buchers, UConn point guard. I'm gonna give her crown because she kind of teased that she is staying at UConn for one more year. And for the reason being that you kind of mentioned it at the end, I think she is getting a lot more money staying at UConn than she would get in the WNBA. Yep. And I think that's a good decision for her. It's a good decision for women's college sports and women's college basketball in general. I honestly think women's sports is growing, even if it's slowly growing. I think it's trending in the right direction. With women like Caitlin Clark and Paige Buchers leading that charge, I think they both deserve it. We got a couple queens in the throne room, Trent.
Oh, yes. That's right.
We never had any queens in the throne room yet. We got a couple queens.
And we got 2 of them, thanks. I don't think we've ever had queens in the throne room. I love it. You got to love
it. Hey, title of this episode, Pair of Queens, man.
Okay, that's what it is. Pair of Queens. That's what we're doing.
There you go. So just so I don't have to live with the fact that you're going to take my doghouse pick, I'm going to lead with the doghouse pick.
Go for it.
My doghouse pick is Kyle Shanahan. Was that yours? Yep.
Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
That's the dog.
We got a double throne room doghouse. Me and Trent, we're duplicates here. Kyle Shanahan is well deserving of the doghouse for a couple reasons, more than probably are going to be said, but I want to focus on, like we talked about, him not showing up prepared for that overtime, him failing at the end of that game to get the ball moving. They had 1 touchdown the entirety of the game, and then proceeds after losing the game to fire their successful defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan, you're not a guy that wins it on the big stage. You continue to show that. Question marks are being raised. We got to figure it out. Kyle. Here's your collar. You're in the doghouse. Trent, anything that I didn't say or that you want to expand on with that?
No, you pretty much nailed it. And if anyone wants to hear our commentary on Kyle Shanahan, we did talk about it earlier. I won't pile on the poor guy. I do think it's awesome, Ethan, that we're finally in lockstep here. It only took 5 episodes, but we're now reading each other's minds. Of all the figures in sports that we could have picked, we picked the same exact 2 for both. I think that's remarkable. But for the sake of the show, I'll give a 30-second different off-the-board answer. And it's a follow-up from what I said a couple weeks ago. Doc Rivers. The Bucs are 3-7 with Doc Rivers at the helm, and he's going to be coaching the All-Star game on Sunday. Are you kidding me? What are we doing again? What are we doing?
Doc Rivers.
Awful.
I was going to bring that up too. Doc Rivers is not the guy. He's just not the guy. Talk about somebody who's lost his fastball, man. Doc Rivers. And that take that you had, however many weeks ago it was, has aged so well. has aged so well because, like you said, the Bucs were doing really well. To this day, I don't know why they fired their head coach, but thank the Lord that Doc Rivers is around now, right?
Yes.
Because for some reason they wanted to just get a face in there. That's another NBA rant. I think we had this rant a couple weeks back, but Trent, I want to touch on something. We haven't done it in a while, and that is our segment of The Double Tech, where we give a hot take. And we missed it last week. I want to come back to it this week. And it's fine if you don't got one, but I feel like this needed some airtime. I feel like it needs to be said. And I'm willing to say it so that if I have to take the hits for it, if I have to take the flack, I will. Okay? But I'm saying
All right.
what needs to be said.
Go for it.
Taylor Swift
Boy.
does not deserve the hate that she is getting.
Oh, I'm with you. I thought you were going the other way. I'm 100% with you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. I think everybody, after watching this NFL season, has just had it out for Taylor Swift when she is just acting like a fan. She is just being a fan. She's not purposely taking the limelight away from what's going on. It is the fault of the cameras that are showing her. Okay. It is the fault of the fans that are acting like she is some mogul, which she is, but she's not Jesus, right? Okay, let's establish that.
Correct.
And she's just I remember talking to my students this past week. I was saying the same thing. I was voicing that I don't think she deserves all this hate, and they were like, "Yeah, but just like the way that she reacts to the plays." And I'm like, "You guys react the same way whenever anything happens, right? Just being a fan of the game, you're gonna have reactions to what happens." She has reactions as well. It's not her fault that the camera puts her in that position and she has to react. So, and let's talk about the fact that Taylor Swift has never come out and said anything bad about the NFL, never tried purposely to take away, like I said, take away the spotlight of what's going on. She's just being a fan and supporting Travis Kelce, whether that relationship is legit or not. She's being a good girlfriend, supporting her boyfriend, and we love healthy relationships here. We love healthy relationships, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I wanted to stand up for Taylor. She's in her Kansas City Chiefs era, as some might say. But Trent, you said you agreed with that. Are you on board with what I'm saying here?
Totally. And I'm not a Swiftie. I'm not a huge Taylor Swift fan. I don't really care one way or another for Taylor Swift. She's one of the biggest stars of our generation, Ethan. So naturally growing up with her music and stuff, I got nothing against Taylor Swift. I'm not a huge fan, but I'll tell you right now, these people that are just miserable people who just need to be mad at something all the time, who are talking about how she, first of all, if you're one of those people who thinks she's dating Travis Kelce to help her brand, you're just a mush brain. She's a billionaire. Would you rather be a billionaire or a 1.1 billion? What are we talking about here? You know
Why
what I mean?
would she need it? Why would she need that?
She doesn't need it. And everyone's like, well, she's appealing to a whole new audience. It's like, yeah, okay, but she doesn't even need that to begin with. So
she could sell out Madison Square Garden for a 10-minute TED Talk. Right?
Yes,
she doesn't need a whole new
could.
Audience.
She sure could.
Yeah, she doesn't need a whole new audience. Okay.
So I'm with you in lockstep on that one. I thought you made me nervous because I thought you were going to go the other way at the beginning, and then we were going to have a good old fashioned first take debate about this.
No, I'm one who genuinely thinks that, if you look at how she's handled her career, even for being at the stardom level that she's at right now, you can't look at her career and say she's really done anything terrible. She's had, these guys and had these breakups and writes the songs about the breakups or whatever. How much of that is on her? You look at, I honestly didn't understand the Taylor's version things. And now that I understand them, I'm like, that's kind of sick. That's kind
of the business
cool.
Side of it. Yes, yeah, because she owns it and she gets to stick it to the record label. I agree. I think that stuff's awesome. So I'm with you, man. I'm with you. I got a quick hot take for you.
Yeah.
And maybe this won't be a hot take. I don't know. Ethan, you, my friend, played college basketball. Would you like to enlighten our listeners about that experience real quick before I go further?
Well, I would love to talk about my college basketball experience, folks. You're looking at a 6-man on Northland College Lumberjacks over in Ashland, Wisconsin. Stand up Lumberjack Nation. We lost in the play-in game on the tournament. I missed a game-winning shot, unfortunately, not to shoot myself down too much here, but it was a fun time. It truly was like a job. You know, it was truly like I was working every single day and not getting paid for it. Super fun experience, though. Loved traveling around. Played a couple big market teams, you might call them. They're mid-major D1s, North Dakota State. Loved the experience, had a great time. Only played for 1 year and then transferred out of there. So that's as far as I can tell.
Well, that's perfect. I just wanted you to lay the groundwork there because I think it's important, because we got me over here who just likes to talk and blabbermouth about. You were actually in it, and although it was D3, it's still college hoops, and you got to travel around and be a part of that grind. And I think it's got some merit to it when you say something like you did a couple weeks ago about the Dartmouth men's basketball team getting paid to do what they're doing. I just think it's cool. So before I give my take, I just wanted to instill that in our listeners as we talk more and more about college hoops, because my take here is college hoops, in my opinion, is the best atmosphere in all of sports, because you've got a gym, a barn, whatever you want to call it, packed full of the energy, the anticipation. Maybe there's some substances involved because you're in college, but it is what it is. It's a great time. And I'm including like playoff baseball. I think March Madness, when you get that winner go home, survive and advance mentality, and you get a blue blood like Duke that's in Jabari Parker, and they're in trouble against Mercer in the first round or something like that, that gets the people going, man. It's awesome. And the way they do it with the 68 teams and the different regions all around the country, to the point where if you want to go to March Madness and go experience it, you pretty much can from any point in this country. I think that's awesome. And this is my big thing here, is it sucks that it sounds like they're going to expand the tournament. They're going to make it even bigger.
What?
And I know they're going to make it like, they're going to expand it for TV revenue and stuff. And I just think that's terrible, because you're taking a perfect thing, and you're gonna taint it and break it a little bit. And you're gonna make it less of an honor to make the tournament. I mean, heck, 64 teams outright, it's 68 with the play-in games. That's enough. We don't need to go 70 plus.
Yeah, how are they going to expand that though?
I don't know what the number is, but they want to add like a whole nother. They want to add like, I think, 14
region.
No, not a fifth region, because you can't do that for the sake of the bracket.
Right.
But it would add the number of teams. They'd add like 4 teams to each region or something like that.
Oh,
so it would still come down to. But anyways, that's my take. I encourage anyone who's listening to this who hasn't really immersed themselves in the college basketball world, watch some of these atmospheres as the season comes down to it, and you're playing for a bid in the tournament, or the conference tournament start before the big dance, and it's survive and advance. It's the best, I'm telling you, because it adds to it the fact that these are kids who are playing. It's not as pretty as some of the NBA stuff that you see, but that's what makes it so pure and so great and entertaining, and the crowd adds to it. And I think it's the best atmosphere. I also think college hoops has the best announcing teams. I mean, you mentioned Gus Johnson. He hasn't been doing March Madness, unfortunately, in a while, but Jim Nance is great. Bill Raftery's fantastic. Ian Eagle's electric. All these guys are just awesome. So there's my little requiem for college hoops, and that'll round out my double tech take, or whatever we call it.
I truly do love that take, Trent, and I think some people that are pleading ignorance here are going to get lost in the sauce and think that you're saying it's like the most appealing sport in general, where Trent just said it's the atmosphere, the college the college sports atmosphere. And I gotta agree with you on that, because I was somebody who, my first year in college, I played at a small school. I transferred back home, went to a community college. I never had the buy-in to like a big sports team, a big college sports team to go to, until I transferred to Grand Canyon University. Lopes up, that's my alma mater there. But when I tell you, and look, Grand Canyon, they've made a couple March Madnesses, but they're 15 seeds, 14, 15 seeds. Yeah. They're not in these big conferences. They're not a Big 10, Big East, Big 12, SEC. They're let me think here. Mountain West. Mountain West. But let me tell you something about these home games, Trent. Packed stadium, packed student section, and it is electric. And you don't know unless you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just have to be there. And what makes that different than a pro team is like I said, the investment, the buy-in. You know, you're talking about a stadium filled with people that have some sort of emotional connection to the team that they're at, whether they're taking classes there 2 days from now, whether their father, their mother, whether they were graduates, you know, whether you work there. All these people are coming together under the common cause that they have some sort of emotional tie to that school. And like you said, when you do something like March Madness, where it's like there's 64 teams and at the end of it there is going to be a singular team, I think that only heightens the atmosphere. So I can't help but agree with you, Trent. College sports, totally best atmosphere.
Yep. And I just, again, as we turn the page out of football, I just want people to keep an eye on it. Be mindful of it as you view March Madness and all the beautiful things that it has to offer. And it's also, not to get on another tangent, but it's one of those things that everyone fills out brackets. Everyone does it. It brings people together. It's beautiful. Sports.
With that being said, go ahead and start following the Double Tech podcast. Like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Comment down below what your favorite college sports team is. The coverage will never stop here at the Double Tech. The coverage will never stop. Even though football season's ending, we got a whole novel to read of college basketball. There's so much more to come here. Go ahead and start following. Click the notifications button. Whatever you got to do to stay intact here. But Trent, we have a betting segment, man. We talk about betting on sports. I didn't really know how to take this. I don't really know what there is to place wager on, but I'll tell you one thing. We can keep this short. West All-Stars is a lock. The Western All-Stars, Western All-Stars is a lock. Okay? If you come at me with Luka, Jokic, LeBron, Kevin Durant, they're not losing. And the East is coached by Doc Rivers. So that is all you need to know. The Western All-Stars should handily win this game. That's all I'm going to say. Do you have anything to speak on the sports betting side of things? Also, gamble responsibly. Gamble responsibly.
Yes. Gamble responsibly. Only gamble what you can afford to lose. We all know you get that dopamine rush. It's all exciting when you win something, but you got to understand there's a bigger picture. I will go with this. Here's my problem. I'm in Michigan right now, as Ethan talked about at the beginning. So my Hard Rock Bet app, which is only legal in Florida, won't work. So I can't even open the app to see what the lines are. But hey, put a little shekel, put a couple shekels on LeBron James All-Star MVP. I do it all the time, and it's only hit for me once. That was in 2018 when he won it, and that was a fun night. Let me just put it that way. So shout out to LeBron. I think this is always the type of thing where he rises to the occasion. Now it'll set the tone in the first 10 minutes. You'll see whether or not LeBron's actually gunning for something like this. But I just think it's one of those things. Lakers are having a down year. He wants to keep himself relevant. I mean, he's LeBron James. I could see him going out there and putting on a show. No one plays defense in this thing, so LeBron can do whatever he wants. Give me LeBron. It's probably he's probably the 6th or 7th best favorite to win that. So let's roll with it. And also, Ethan, I'll take the East All-Stars for the sake of the show. I don't think they're going to win, but I'll throw a couple bucks on the East All-Stars.
Taking the East. I love it. I love it. Well, man, it's been an hour and 3 minutes and 30 seconds. We're getting pretty consistent with this time, Sean. We're getting pretty good at this. We're going to close up shop here with a little reflecting and projecting. And I got a team, Trent. I got a team for us here.
All right.
I got a team up my sleeve, and let me give my little spiel here before we get started. So currently, if we look at the NBA standings, the second-ranked team in the Western Conference is the Oklahoma City Thunder. The last time they were in the top 2 seeds for the Western Conference was in the 2015-2016, also marking the last year they had Kevin Durant. The year after 2015-2016, they lost Kevin Durant to the Golden State Warriors, that is. They ended up finishing the 2016-2017 season 6th in the NBA Western Conference. But we are going to talk about the first year that they did not have Kevin Durant, that 2016-2017 season. Trent, we are looking for as many players and coaches you can name from this team. 2016-2017 Oklahoma City Thunder.
This is a great pick by you. MVP that year was Russell Westbrook, MVP of the whole league, and that's the obvious one. Russ was really fun to watch that year. Steven Adams was on that team. He was the enforcer as the starting center.
He was.
Tatted up, Aquaman, all that good stuff. This is where I really got to think before I speak.
I think you got to dig a little bit. You got to dig a little bit.
I'm going to have to dig a little bit. Andre Roberson.
Roberson was on that team.
I remember, dude, he was like, he was like a 3-and-D guy, and he was like locked down defense. And then like 3 years after that, he was out of the league. And I'm like, what happened to Andre Roberson? Like, no one has any use for that guy. Oh, dang it, man.
Can you get coach?
Billy Donovan.
Yep.
Was Ibaka there, or was he already in Toronto?
Serge Ibaka was not here.
Okay, so he was gone. He was out of the country even. Let's go. This is just I got players from that era that are just not some of these. Was Kyle Singler on that team?
Kyle Singler was on. He didn't get any tick though. He barely played.
Okay, but he was there.
Yeah, he was there.
Was DJ Augustine on that team?
DJ Augustine was not on that team.
Dang.
So you're missing the second and third scorers on this team.
Dog.
Let me know when you need a hint.
Dennis Schroeder wasn't on that team, right? That was before.
No.
He was eventually, but not that year.
Yep.
Give me a hint. Hit me.
So here's your hint. Another NBA journeyman, Indiana product.
Oh, Vic Oladipo.
Victor Oladipo was the second scoring option on that team. And then the third-ranked scoring option had a long tenure on the Knicks, pissed a lot of people off. Center.
Oh, no.
Changed his last name.
Oh, no. I don't know. Should I know who this is? I think I know.
I think you should.
Center on the Knicks who changed his last name.
His last name is now Freedom.
I don't know.
It used to be Enes Kanter.
Oh, okay.
Now known as Enes Freedom.
Okay.
And then making our way down the list, we got Taj Gibson, Ersan Ilyasova. We got Creighton product Doug McDermott. Now check this out, Trent. This was news to me. Couple guys, prolific NBA players right now, were drafted by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jeremy Grant was on this squad.
Okay, nice.
And check this out, Domantas Sabonis.
Oh, that's right.
The year after goes to Indiana and wins Most Improved Player, and then it seems like from there on out he was an NBA All-Pro.
Yeah, that's right, man. I remember Sabonis getting drafted because I don't know. No one cares about this, but that draft, my youth group took a mission trip to New York City, and we went to the Barclays Center where the draft was, and Sabonis was there signing autographs. But dude, that's a good pick. I never would have remembered Enes Kanter unless you told me. But yeah, of course I remember Enes Kanter.
I remember wasn't there a hit out for him to get murdered or something?
In Turkey there was, yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's why he's really never been back. Real quick before we move on, I want to read everyone Russell Westbrook's averages that year because he was insane. I gotta find it here. I just remember, and shout out to our good friend Gavin, who was just a diehard Russ guy. He played sense. 81 games to begin with. 81 games, 35 minutes a game, 32 points, 11 rebounds, 10.5 assists per game. That's
stupid.
The motor didn't shut off. And this is after KD left, and he's just, angry at the world. And it was actually a really fun run for them. They unfortunately lost in the first round, but good pick, E. Shout out to the Thunder.
Shout out OKC. Trent, do you have a famous last words for us today?
Of course I do. And this comes from the great Nasir bin Oludara Jones, a.k.a. Nas. Not Lil Nas X. Nas. Go look him up, kids. One of the greats. In the spirit of Ethan and I reading each other's mind today, I've got one lyric I'll leave you with. This is my tactical flow, the one they can't redesign. You can redo the voice, but you can never read my mind.
Come on. Come on. Folks, we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you coming back every single week for the hottest podcast in the United States, the hottest sports podcast, the only podcast where you can see a closet in the background. Folks, we love you. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next week here on the Double Tech Podcast.